Hello, everybody. We have a very interesting case to talk about today. This case has important facets. This is an SFA intervention that we're looking at, but we will see how important are guide wires, how important are wires to cross these lesions cleanly so that therapy options may be available for delivering to these kinds of patients. The patient that we are going to present today is a 76-year-old gentleman. He has a history of coronary artery disease with previous interventions, has peripheral arterial disease with previous interventions in his right SFA, hypertension, dyslipidemia, and carotid disease. He presented because for some time he's been having severe lifestyle limiting claudication consistent with Rutherford 3 claudication, more prevalent on the right leg compared to the left leg. He presented to this clinic for workup for his right leg claudication. As a part of the workup, which was performed for the patient in this clinic, an ABI was performed in the clinic. An ABI revealed 0.62, which was very significant ABI on the right leg, and a normal ABI of 1.03 on the left leg. ABI was followed by an arterial Doppler that revealed that there was an occluded stent in the right proximal SFA, which was stented in the past, and there was consistently a greater than 75% distal to mid SFA stenosis. Because of the severe lifestyle limiting claudication, this patient was brought for an intervention in an outpatient settings. So now we have the patient who's prepped for us and we are ready to get an access. It is generally my experience that ultrasound access should be the only access that should be performed. We are choosing the left groin in this case, where the left groin common femoral artery is being visualized. Common femoral artery visualization also allows us to see where the calcium is located, how diseased is the intima in that particular vessel, so that the closure device could be chosen appropriately. We will visualize the common femoral artery on the left side, and an access will be performed, and an angiography of the abdominal aorta and the right femoral artery will be performed subsequently. Once I take the access, I perform the groin angiography right at the same time. Here we were having slight difficulty in passing the wire into the abdominal aorta, and therefore a groin angiogram was performed. The groin angiogram reveals what we saw on the ultrasound was a clean stick in the common femoral artery on the left side. This is my catheter, which is going up. The particular wire that I'm using in this particular case is a magic torque wire. A magic torque wire has got a quality in the sense it has a flimsy end, so if we have increased tortuosity, which may not be crossed by the J wire, a magic torque wire is able to access it very clean. Here I'm using a rim catheter. The rim catheter is being placed in an abdominal aorta. Abdominal aortography will be performed. A digital subtraction angiography will be seen now. I sometimes prefer a rim catheter in these cases because it sits on the aortic bifurcations very well. However, the only a word of caution in this case would be that it's an end hole catheter, so we have to be very careful and lower down the PSIs on the assist machine if you're using an assist machine. So there has, as we can see, there is a little ectasia of the distal abdominal aorta, but there is definitely no critical stenosis that is being seen. Bilateral common iliac arteries are seen to be patent. Now we will be pushing and getting the rim catheter across to the other side so that we can perform digital subtraction angiography on the right leg. So because of the ectasia and the abdominal aorta, we are having a little difficulty putting the rim catheter down. But once we have it placed right there, we will be pushing our 035 glide wire to get the rim catheter across to the right common femoral artery. This is a glide wire going down nicely. We have to be careful that we don't get into the tiny branches because with the glide wire, it can go into any small branches and risk perforation. So our wire goes down, the wire goes into the profunda femoris artery, and we take the rim catheter all the way right into the common femoral artery and we'll connect and take digital subtraction and geography in the right lane. So we had noted on the ultrasounds that the right superficial femoral artery stent was occluded. And we do see that now in the angiography. The SFA stent is occluded. There is a little lip right on the proximal edge of the stent where we can see a little bit of staining of the dye into the SFA, and distally it reconstitutes in the Hunter's canal. Right there. And then it progresses down into a diseased infrapopliteal vessel state. The next step in this case would be changing it to a long sheath, which can be placed into the common femoral artery. And from there on, we will perform intervention and recanalization of the right SFA. As you can see in this particular point in the case, that my sheath is slightly into the SFA stent. Now, when I try to cross these SFAs and there is an ostial stent, I try to take the glide wire right into the stent and then put the sheath a little bit in. What it does give me, it gives me a little room or purchase so that when I'm using force to cross the SFA, the sheath does not back out easily. Now here, I'm using a crossing catheter, which is NaviCross in this particular case, and I'm taking a wire which is called the Gaia PV. Now Gaia PV is an 018 wire, and really, for me, it's a choice of wire that I use for chronic SFA, chronic total occlusions. The reason is that Asahi Gaia PV wire has an ACT1 technology. ACT1 technology makes the wire get a 1:1 torque. And the second important thing in this particular wire is got a 7.5 gram tip. The 7.5 gram tip makes it a very ideal wire to cross into a chronic total occlusion. And the third thing is that the way it is being constructed, it's got 1:1 torque even in a chronic total occlusion, which is usually not easy to find in wires. So anytime I've found a chronic total occlusion of an SFA, my Gaia PV is my default wire. Another advantage of this wire is that it comes with a micro, it's already pre-shaped with a micro tip, which is very useful in maneuvering this wire. If you compare it with the other Asahi wires like Astato 018 or an Astato 014, the tip has to be made by the operator. But Asahi Gaia PV 018 comes with a preformed tip, which is very, very useful. I have seen in many cases that I've crossed in the SFA CTOs that this wire has an excellent 1:1 torque. The company does say that sometimes when we torque this wire, we wait for the tip to move. But I think in my practical experience, the torque is almost immediate that I've seen. It has, it's a beautiful wire and almost my #1 workhorse wire for an SFA chronic total occlusion. I almost always use it with what I say a crossing catheter. If the lesions are too tight, then I use an 018 crossing catheter, which could be any crossing catheter. Or if I have a decent lesion, then I can use an 035, sometimes a NaviCross, just because of its hydrophilic tip and coating. In this particular case, as you see that when I crossed this wire, it went in perfectly fine right till the Hunter's canal. And after that, it was difficult for me to cross this wire further on. So I'm taking a roadmap shot to see where exactly is my reconstitution of the SFA. Once my reconstitution of the SFA is determined, I could use the tip of the Asahi Gaia PV and direct it towards the lumen of the SFA. And I have always seen that this trick works for me almost 100% of the times. And that's what makes this completely a wonderful wire for SFA CTOs. Now, this is me making a roadmap. I'm having some difficulty with the stabilization of this image, but however, we will see as we move forward how we can use this wire very well. I almost use a torquing device with this wire, which gives us a nice control on the torque. So this is me doing the roadmap one more time. You will see that the profunda filling the distal SFA, and then we'll see the proximal filling. Now I'm going to make this smart mask, and now I'm going to push this wire. as we see closely, as the wire comes down, once I'm close to the distal cap, I will take another digital subtraction angiography and use that picture to perform a smart mask. We'll select this particular shot. And now I will proceed with my support catheter in the Gaia PV018. This wire also has a 15 centimeter radio opaque tip, which makes it visible very clearly. This wire will come down. And as you see, I'm using the torque device. And here the tech is giving the torque device to me. And as you see, I'm using the torque device and moving the wire in the forward direction. The wire, I keep the wire tip moving as we see in this particular case, and you will see as I'm putting a little forward pressure and continue to torque, this wire will continue to form it. As the tip becomes completely released, once it enters the true lumen, you know you have crossed. It's almost invariably like this. And what I've learned over my usage of this wire is I keep a gentle forward push and I use my right hand to continue the torque, the wire right and left, which gives me an assessment. As soon as the wire enters the true lumen, the tip becomes completely loose and I'm able to cross this wire completely. One of the things to keep in consideration when you're using this wire, never buckle the tip of this wire too much. If you feel that the tip is buckling, means you are facing a lot of resistance, it's time to withdraw that wire and redirect it at another point. The wire, the tip of the wire, which is 7.5 gram tip, will find a way through that chronic total occlusion into the true lumen. Now, once I've crossed with this wire, as you see, it has got a long radio opaque marker, which is hydrophilic, by the way, and it's 15 centimeters. And once I cross it with the crossing catheter, I'm able to perform a confirmation shot that I'm intraluminal in this case. To be honest, once I've started using the Gaia PV018, I've rarely used another wire like a stiff angle guide wire with a crossing catheter to cross it through a dissection plate. Most of my crossings have become intraluminal because of this wire, which opens up a wide array of atherectomy devices that I could use. If I have a good intraluminal clean cross, then if the lesion is very calcified, we could choose a CSI Diamondback atherectomy. If we see a plaque, instant restenosis, we could use a laser atherectomy. The choices become very limited if we are crossing with a dissection. And that is why I like this wire to be used for chronic total occlusion crossings. Now, once we have crossed these lesions, we will take a crossing catheter down, confirm the angiography that we are in the true lumen, and thereafter we will perform atherectomy. I feel that the Gaia PV018, the crossing is so important to be intraluminal because once we have an intraluminal crossing, a choice of atherectomy devices becomes really easy for us. If we, by any chance, are not able to cross intraluminally, it becomes difficult to perform debulking with any atherectomy device because of the dissection flaps. But because in these particular cases, we have been able to do a good job at crossing intraluminally, if I find the lesion is very calcified, we could do a Diamondback atherectomy. Otherwise, we could do, if the lesions have got a lot of plaque, restenosis, we could do turbo power, or we could use any other laser atherectomy catheters which we are available. Therefore, I really feel that crossing the SFA intraluminally is so important for long-term patency of these lesions. Now, as I'm parking my wire into the infrapopliteal vessels, I would be performing a laser atherectomy in this case. So once the wire is down, in this particular case, I changed my 018 wire to an 014 wire just because the 018 wire, the Gaia PV had a 7.5 gram tip and we needed a softer wire to perform a laser atherectomy in this case. So we exchanged the wire out and now we will be taking a laser catheter 2.0 and performing debulking of this lesion. Laser is an obvious choice in this case because of the significant instant restenosis that we see and further atherosclerosis that we see de novo lesion in the mid to distal SFA. This is us starting the laser atherectomy. As you see that we are flushing it with saline, it is not as visible to have contrast in the line when we are performing the laser atherectomy. So we flush the line with saline and then perform laser atherectomy. Laser is ideally being performed at a very slow speed of 1 millimeter per second, and that gives the best debulking in this particular case. So once laser is being performed, then we shall proceed on to a balloon angioplasty. It is my choice to always choose a lower profile balloon in the first place, something like 4.0. In my experience, I've noted that smaller balloons, when they're inflated slowly, kept up for a long period of time, and then slowly deflated, that minimizes the risk of dissection. In this particular case, we have a long lesion in the SFA, which is not stented, and therefore I would like not to stent it if possible. And therefore, a choice of the balloon is chosen conservatively and moved up from there. So a 4.0 balloon would be used after an atherectomy is done. This is a balloon coming in. As I mentioned, we used a small 4.0 balloon. And with this balloon, we are going to inflate at very, very low atmospheres. Now, for me, low atmospheres is just 4 to 6 atmospheres, just in order to create a little bit of a lumen. And a 4.0 is a very, very atraumatic balloon, which goes up slowly and stays up at 4 atmosphere. Now, this is absolutely not the right size of the SFA. I always use an intravascular ultrasound for the right sizing of the SFA. And in this particular case, I've used a 4.0 balloon, but I shall be going with an intravascular ultrasound catheter after this. We use a Philips intravascular ultrasound catheter most of the times in our lab. So the balloon normally is kept up for 2 to 3 minutes and then slowly deflated, and then the intravascular ultrasound catheter would be introduced in the patient's SFA. So this is us introducing the intravascular ultrasound catheter. This is a Philips IVUS 018. Now, the intention of doing the intravascular ultrasound is obviously to size the SFA, but also to look for any residual dissections which are there. If there is any major dissections, that would change the treatment algorithm, and stenting may be opted in that case. However, as we will see, so this is the angiogram that we took right before intravascular ultrasound, and our area of interest would be the re-entry, obviously, because this is the area where we sometimes can note dissections to re-enter. But as we shall see in this case, the IVUS will be very critical in identifying how the SFA looks like. So this is us taking the IVUS. We start from the popliteal artery segment, and the pullback will be performed slowly. It's a very well sized. You see a circumferential plaque there, not a lot of calcium. So we see that it's been a pretty clean cross right here. The intravascular ultrasound catheter stays in the lumen, and it is surrounded by all 3 layers of intima, media, and adventitia. We see here an eccentric plaque right there, but it is still intraluminal. We don't see any evidence of any major dissections. Very, very diseased SFA, but a very eccentric location of the plaque can be seen. See, this is what I really like about performing intravascular ultrasound, because some areas may be looking good on angiography, but only after performing an intravascular ultrasound do we really see what is the extent of disease. Now, how does that change my management? Well, I see that it's a clean intravascular cross, but I see so much of plaque that I do not think a balloon angioplasty alone would be enough for this patient. The patient will definitely have a restenosis, as we can see evidence of plaque all around. Therefore, a drug-coated balloon would be an obvious choice in this particular case, so that we can prevent restenosis of this lesion. We do see a little bit of a dissection at the entry site, as you note there, but it is not a flow-limiting lesion, and it continues to stay intraluminal throughout. Therefore, I think my choice of a intervention next would be a balloon angioplasty with drug-coated balloon. And intravascular ultrasound was very good at sizing it, and we shall notice that the size came to be around 6.0 millimeter in this particular case, which will be the choice of my balloon that I'll use. The choice of balloon that we used in this case was a Stellarex drug-coated balloon from Philips, and we shall be using a 6 millimeter drug-coated balloon here. So this is us introducing the Stellarex DCB. When we took our intravascular ultrasound measurement, the normal diameter and the vessel sizing was around 6.1 millimeter. And somewhere in the popliteal, we were finding an area of 5.3. Normally, I'll go a little upsize on the drug-coated balloon, and I go up on low atmospheres. I do not inflate the balloon at high atmospheric pressures just because I do not think it's needed, and just increases the risk of dissection in a plain balloon angioplasty case. Therefore, this is us using the Stellar X drug-coated balloon, going up slowly. I try to stay below 6 atmospheres, and once I see a full expansion of the drug-coated balloon, I tend to leave that for total 3 minutes and then slowly come down with that. So here it has not completely covered the lesion. Therefore, we shall be using another overlapping drug-coated balloon in this particular patient. Now the balloon will stay up for 3 minutes. This is our overlapping balloon that we have, which is overlapping the instant restenosis or almost occlusion of the proximal SFA stent. We leave this balloon up another 3 minutes, and then we shall perform our final angiography after that to see if any residual stenosis are present in this case. So we shall be performing our final angiographies and seeing how lesions look like. So we see it's a very excellent recanalization of the SFA. The proximal stent is opened completely. Now we will see the distal SFA. This is a good time to give some nitroglycerin in these patients because there's been so much disease that all these balloon angioplasties can sometimes cause some distal microembolization, and any intravascular nitroglycerin will help open up the distal vasculature. My usual dose is around 200 to 400 mics of nitroglycerin, and we take another shot after that. So as you see the distal, looks perfectly fine. There's some non-flow limiting dissection in the Hunter's canal, but it does not cause any flow limitation there. And you see a very brisk flow in the popliteal artery and reconstruct and further infrapopliteal vessels. So very fast movement of the contrast. As you can see, these vessels were not opacified in our pre-intervention angiography, and now we have got excellent two-vessel runoff with a perineal artery that's highly diseased. But there's a very brisk flow that we notice after this. Now, in these particular cases with minor non-flow limiting dissections, I tend to be on the conservative side and try not to stent if we don't have to. Obviously, we saw this patient did not do very well and had an occlusion of the right SFA stent. So in order to put more metal in, that may be a problem. Since we've used additional treatment with drug-coated balloon, it may be nice to see how the patient does with just the drug-coated balloons. So I think this is a very excellent demonstration of a chronic SFA total occlusion with symptoms of Rutherford claudication, where crossing with a good wire is very important. Just fixing the vessel with a stent and a balloon may not be good because long-term patencies are a problem. But here we see that how a good wire like an Asahi Gaia 018 can cross these lesions very cleanly in absolutely no time and will be very good for patients in choosing further therapy. Because of the clean crossing, as I mentioned, I'd like to stress again, we were able to choose a good atherectomy device and go on for a drug-coated balloon angioplasty, which prevented us from using more stent in this case. Had we crossed it with a dissection plane, we would have been forced to put a stent in there, which is not ideal in a patient like this. So I think this is a great wire, and along with the other equipment that we did, hopefully we should be able to have a good result for this patient and good long-term patency of this vessel.